But the problem with this block is that now I can start copying this item. I'll have to rotate it, and then I'll have to update also the size if I want to make this shelf bigger or smaller. So we see there are many problems with this block, right? So to streamline again the process of adding shelving, we're going to tackle one issue at a time. And the first issue I want to tackle is the ability to change sizes or width or length of my shelving. So for that, I'm going to go back to the block editor, and I'm going to start adding what are called um, parameters and actions. So if you don't see the block authoring palette on your screen, it's also on your ribbon authoring palette. So what we can do with this is we can add a parameter, in this case the linear parameter. That's the one that we're going to add first. um, so and the linear parameter, what is going to help us is, let me show you. Click on it, and of course if we don't know anything about it, there is the command line that can help us. It says specify starting point. So I'm going to click right about here, and also my endpoint will be right about here. So I'm gonna click finally, like so. All right, so now we have a distance, but in reality we this would be the length of our shelving, right? So I'm gonna change that from my property palette over here, which says distance. I'm gonna say length and press enter. So that way when we start working with this shelving, we are going to be able to better understand some of these parameters. All right, now you can see there's an exclamation mark here. It means that this parameter is not working, it's not doing anything yet. And we can prove that by going to the test block option, and you can see there's nothing there. And that is because we need to add an action. And 99% of these parameters in AutoCAD will need an action. Again, there is some exceptions, but 99% will need one. So let's go to the actions. And over here, what we can do is we can add an action. In this case, the action we want is the stretch action. Why? Well, because we say we want to be able to change the length size of our shelving easily. So let's go ahead, and our parameter, as the command line is suggesting over here, the parameter would be this, of course. Select a start point. My start point would be here, this corner. So I'm gonna click on it, and then specify a corner of stretch frame. So of course would be similar to the stretch command, right? When we stretch an item, we want a portion to be stretched, not everything, otherwise your entire block will move, and we don't want that. So I'm gonna click right about here, and finally I'm gonna select my object. My objects will be all of these objects, and I'll press enter. Now, look over here that still the exclamation mark is there. That means still there is something missing, right? But let's test the block over here from the ribbon. Now you can see that the stretch grip that wasn't showing an exclamation mark is the only one working. So let's go ahead and stretch that. And great, you can see how we are adjusting our length of the shelving really quick. Now, I want also the flexibility to adjust my shelving size in both directions, right? Also from here. Now we are seeing both grips, which is great. So, but let's test it. All right. So, to better test this block, what I'm gonna do and what I suggest to always do is go to the model environment. So I'm gonna close this block editor and of course save the changes. That's very important. And now I have my block right there. Now the reason why I like to do this every once in a while is before we keep adding and adding parameters is because the block on model space might have a different behavior. For instance, if I change the size over here on this right side, works beautifully. Now let's see if I can change the size on to the left. It works beautifully too. However, I see a problem. And the problem is this base point is staying in one location and we don't want that. Because look what's gonna happen if I move this. My base point is gonna be floating around and that's not right. This will cause problems in the future when you want to move, stretch items. Alright? So let's fix that. And of course the text it's also a problem. We're gonna tackle that also. But first let's fix the base point problem. So let's go back to the block editor. And for this, we're gonna implement a parameter. In this case would be the base point parameter. Alright? So let's select that. And following instructions, we're gonna specify a parameter location. So of course our base point right now for our block is right here on the X and Y direction. So that's where we want to place our parameter base point or base point parameter. So I'm gonna click and place it like so. Now, if we test this block, you're gonna see that nothing really happens because right now, let me test it. You can see the base point stays there because we didn't associate that base point with our stretch action. So we need to do that. We need to associate it. So let's go and to our one of our stretch actions. If you don't know which one is the correct one, you can just hover or put your mouse on top of it and you will see that it will update. So if I hover over this, it will be the stretch for the right side. If I hover on the other one, it will be the stretch for the left side. That's the one that I need. So let me click on it. And now what I can do is right click on it and say modify selection set. Following instructions is asking me again to create a corner of stretch frame, but I already had that. So what I can do to simply use the existing one is press enter. And you can see that the frame already was selected. Now, here is very important. We need to either add or remove an item. And in this case, we don't want to remove, we want to add. So the add option is selected, that's good. So I'm gonna add my base point in this case. Selecting that and pressing enter. Now, let's test these changes. And let me stretch this. And boom, as you can see now my base point is associated with my stretch action, which is great, right? Awesome. Now that we fixed that problem, let's go ahead and start fixing or streamlining some of the other task, which was the size of our shelving, right? Because when we change the length, we will also like to update the size, right? And that's what we want. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me check first the size of this, see if it's right. So 36, that's fine. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is first of all, I'm gonna erase this text because this is a regular text that won't update. Now, there are many approaches to kind of streamline this size information. One way would be to right click and insert a field, right? And we have done that before for other blocks, and then add a field, selecting objects, picking my objects, in this case, either my block or my length parameter, and then picking architectural and so on. Well, not area, but length, and then architectural. Okay. But in this case, I'm gonna pick a different approach. Why? Because if we use a field, we'll need to regenerate or update our drawing each time we change sizes of our shelving, and I want to avoid that extra step. So what I can do instead is use a dimension. Yes, so I'm gonna use a dimension um, using the regular dim linear command, and I'm gonna specify my base point right here, and from this other point, and click right about here, like so. Right now, you can see, of course, that the text is, tiny and so on. We're gonna fix. So, but I want to explain why we're using a dimension. The reason why we're using a dimension is because it has many benefits, and you're gonna see that in a moment. So, first of all, I'm gonna change the size of my dimension, right? So the size of my dimension, I mean, it depends on your needs, but let's say our dimension is, go ahead and select our dimension, go to our properties, and of course we can change so many different settings of our dimension. First of all, I want to change, there are multiple ways to change the text. One would be to change the dim scale overall. Other way would be to just change the text itself, the text height right about here. So I'm gonna try to do the first option, the dim scale overall. This again, it's a dimension, but we can kind of fake it and make it believe it's a text. How? By hiding all of the unnecessary lines, extension lines, and so on. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and go to arrow one, and let's say none. You can see now there is no arrow or over here. So let's do the same for the arrow number two. Let's say no. That's fine. Let's keep removing these items that we don't need to show. So for instance, extension line 1, let's set that to off. Extension line 2, let's set that to off. Extension dim line 1, let's set that to off, as you can see. And let's do the same for the other one, off. Great. As you can see now, this doesn't look as a dimension anymore. This is just a piece of text, and dimensions are smarter, and you're gonna see that in a moment. But first of all, remember when we added the base point, we had to associate it to one of these stretch actions. Otherwise, it won't work. So let's do the same for the dimension. But before we do that, I want my dimensions, I want still to change some settings on my dimension, because right now it's showing in feet, but I would like to show it in inches, right? I want to do that. I want to show it in inches. So what I can do is select my dimension, go to my properties, and let's see if we can find a setting to change here. So dim units is set to architectural. So let's change that to decimal. As you can see, now it's showing 36, but all of these zeros, of course, this is 36 inches right now. So let's change the precision to just 10. That's 36, that's fine. But we are missing the inches symbol or character. So let's do that and add that over here under dim suffix and press enter, and boom, as you can see, we easily are showing now our dimension in inches, which is a common thing for shelving length. Right now, let's associate it with our stretch action. So for that, I need to click one of these stretch actions and of course modify selection set. The frame would be the same, so I'll press enter and make sure add is selected, and I'm gonna select all of my items including my dimension like so and press enter. Great. I'll do that the same procedure really quick for this other stretch action. All right, so let's test the block. Awesome. You can see how beautifully it updates the measurement in real time. So that way you don't have to regenerate your drawing each time you change sizes, like using fields, right? We don't want that. This is awesome, guys. This is, again, a technique I discovered trying and testing dynamic blocks. So again, use a dimension instead of a field. You can see the dimension is kind of, it looks like a field also. It's very smart and it has multiple benefits. It has a wonderful benefit that I'm going to show you in a moment. But first, let's keep moving. One of the things or problems I see here, guys, is that I don't want to have random sizes for my shelving, because in reality, when you buy these shelvings from the manufacturer or any company, it'll come in standard sizes. And we want to emulate that to simplify our life even farther. So let's do that. Constrain or add some standard sizes. And in order to do that, I already kind of investigated some of the standard sizes for these shelvings, and we need to select the linear parameter and go into our properties. There is an option here under value set. Right now it's set to none. That means it's just unlimited options, and we don't want that because that's not how it is in the real world. So let's go ahead and change the list option, and right now we only have the 3 feet or the 36. So what we can do is start adding more options by clicking this icon. So for instance, I'm gonna add 24, press enter. As gonna add, I think also comes in 2 feet 6. Also come at 3 feet, we already have that. 4 feet, 5 feet, and finally 6 feet. So click OK. And you can see that now we have these standard sizes right about here. So this means that now we can follow quickly some standard sizes for our shelving. Great, right? Awesome, guys. Now, now that we did that, let's go ahead and test this block on model space, saving the changes, of course, because there are still more ways that we can streamline this process, but I need to show you that in model space. So let's save the changes, of course. All right, so of course we don't need these exploded items anymore, right? So that's right there. Let's say I need 24. That's not a problem. Awesome, 24. Now these shelvings, let's see over here. Let's say I want to add a shelving, 72 inches right there, and I want to add another one over here. So I'll have to copy that, right? And then I'll have to rotate it like so. And then if I need another one here, I'll have to rotate also and keep rotating. Now let's add another quick icon to rotate our shelving, right? And let me go ahead and go to the block editor, and let's add a rotation parameter. So if we go under the parameters tab, there is a nice option called rotation. So let's select that, and following instructions, we're going to specify a base point. Um, so our base point would be the same as our block base point. So I'm gonna click that like so. And then I'm gonna specify my radius of parameter right about here on this other corner. And then finally specify a angle. So I'm gonna simply press enter to accept that. And you'll see that an icon is showing right now. So let's go ahead and you can see now an exclamation mark. And if you've been following this lesson, you know that an exclamation mark means something is missing. And since we just added this rotation parameter, well, there gotta be something missing to this rotation parameter, right? That makes sense. So let's go ahead and go to the actions. And yes, we see here there is a rotate action. Let's use that. Let's select our parameter, select our objects. In this case, our objects will be everything, right? I could select everything, but I could also say all and press enter. And you can see that exclamation mark went away. So let's go ahead and test this. Let's select that and boom, you can see how beautifully we can rotate now our shelving. Now, there is still a problem here with the new rotation icon. You can see location is fixed, is not following our shelving similar to our base point. And that will again be a problem in the future because our rotation will be floating around like so, and we don't want. So let's see how we can fix that. Close. I'm not forgetting, I need to show you the other advantage of using dimensions instead of smart text or field. So I'm going to show you that in a moment, and it's a beautiful advantage or benefit. But first, let's fix this grip over here. So what we can do is associate that grip with our stretch action, of course, and we need to pick the correct one, remember? So we don't need this one, we need this one right here. So I'm gonna click and again modify selection set, press enter to accept it, and I'm gonna now select again these items including my rotation. So I'm gonna test it, and beautifully our grip is now working beautifully. Awesome. You can see it's following our stretch action, which is great. You never want floating items. That's a very bad block and it will cause you trouble in the future, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and test this but in model space. Let's save the changes. So let's go ahead and let's say I need a block like here, so I can simply copy this right now, easily rotate it with my rotate action. Now I can quickly finish now adding shelvings with sizes and all of that. Oops, we have a problem right here, guys. You see that? That's why it's important to not only test it in the block editor but also in over here in model space, and we have a problem. You can see now how when I stretch down our block get distorted like so. So let's try to fix that. So I'm gonna go back to my block editor and see what's going on. All right, let's investigate this a little bit. So if I okay guys, well, one of the solutions I'm gonna try is when we added this rotate action, we selected everything with the all option. Remember? Do you remember that? And that might be a problem because probably um, the stretch frames were also selected. Remember, there is one, this is a stretch frame, and there is another one over here. So those stretch frames probably were also selected, and now they are being rotated with when we rotate our block, and then our stretch actions now will stretch in a weird distorted way. So if that's the case that I'm guessing, let's see, and let's do it again. So what I can do is I can right click on my action first. I can right click on my rotation action, and I can say, instead of modify selection set, just to make sure, I'm gonna say new selection set. And let me cancel for a second so we can if we select this action, we can go to our properties and you'll see 10 objects on the selection set under this rotate action, of course. So let's remember that number 10, because look how many objects we have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably this would be 5. The base point would be 6. Our grips maybe would be, but we don't have 10. Probably the other two are the frames, the stretch frames. So let's try to solve that. Right click, new selection set, and in this case, instead of saying all, right, I'm gonna simply select my items. So, okay, and press enter. Now let's check how many items are selected. 8. Do you see that? That is crazy, guys. I'm glad that. Well, still it's not fixed, right? Let's test it first, see if it's now working properly. But I guess it's gonna be right, because there is 8 now, and before there were 10, meaning those two stretch frames. Let's see how they save the changes. So the problem was when I stretch this, right? And yes, beautifully. You can see now that when we stretch down, it's not getting distorted anymore. We're golden, guys, but let's keep testing this just to make sure that everything is working nicely, So I'm gonna copy that. Let's go over here. Let's go up. Let's stretch it up and down. And yes, everything is working as expected. Now, guys, since everything is perfect now, I want to show you what I was talking about, the benefits of using a dimension in a block. Of course, you already know one of the benefits, which means it'll update, in real time. So you don't have to regenerate or do anything. But the other benefit that is very important is, look what happened when you rotate your let me uncheck this. Look what happened when you rotate your block. Your dimension or your text will also adjust accordingly to always read horizontally, or always read correctly and not backwards. Look, if I go up, as the text is reading correctly. If I rotate it the other way, the text is also rotating correctly. So you'll never have like a backward text or something. And you can see that that is crazy. And it is, again, because we're using a dimension. Awesome, right? All right, so here you have it. Hopefully you were able to simplify your life using this shelving block, using a dimension, using a rotation action, using parameters, and so on. That, and we have a beautiful shelving block that is gonna simplify our life, and we can stop using text with just boxes that won't make our life easier. If you want to streamline your AutoCAD workflows, join our lazy professionals and business owners at Patreon Lazy Arquitecto.